This video is not about reducing stress through yoga, meditation, and self-care. Those things are great, but they're band-aid solutions. Today, I'm going to be talking about real sustainable ways that you can be a stress-free corporate baddie so you can prevent burnout and live your best stress-free goddamn life. I'll be talking about 4 topics. Number 1, why giving less shits is important and the 3 elements. Number 2, why your personal life is key and the 3 traps. How to set actual boundaries at work and real talk of toxic work environments. Also, don't get me wrong, self-care is so important, but stay tuned for the end of my video where I will talk about how capitalism has ruined self-care. So let's get started. But first, what is balance? What do I mean when I say work-life balance or being stress-free at work? Is it even realistic to never be stressed again at work? Probably not, unless you're a monk. So let's meet 2 people to demonstrate what is versus isn't stress. We're gonna meet Corporate SADDIE and Corporate BADDIE. My name is Corporate SADDIE. I try and eat healthy, but when work gets busy, I end up skipping meals or grabbing fast food. I honestly used to enjoy going to the gym, but lately I've been so exhausted after a long day at work. I have trouble falling asleep at night because I'm always worrying about work and what I need to do the next day. And I feel like I can never truly relax because I'm always checking my phone for work-related emails on my evenings and even on the weekends. What's up? I'm Corporate Baddie. I enjoy taking walks outside during my lunch break to get some fresh air and stretch my legs. I love my evenings, even if I have no plans, just to enjoy my own company and relax at home. I focus on what I can control and let go of things outside of my control to avoid unnecessary stress and anxiety. And I see work just as one part of my whole identity and not the sole determinant of my worth or success. What's the secret sauce to Corporate Baddie's stress-free approach? Let's break it down. Number 1, why giving less shits is important and the 3 elements. I know what you might be thinking, Rosie, what the F are you telling me to do? How am I gonna be successful at work if I give less shits? Okay, hear me out. Giving less shits at work reduces your stress. Reduce stress equals being your best self. Being your best self equals better focus, better productivity, better relationships with coworkers, better job satisfaction. It is a win-win-win-win-win situation. There are 3 key elements to giving less shits. The first is practicing letting go. Let it go! Learn to let go of things outside of your control. Instead of worrying about things you cannot change, practice letting it go. Coworkers or clients being difficult, outside of your control, let that shit go. So personal example, I worked with a client who would always gaslight our team. To our face, he would say like, oh my God, this project is going so well. But behind our back, he would escalate that shit to my manager and complain about how we're not doing anything on the project, blah, blah, blah. So what was in my control? It was in my control to communicate the full situation to my manager and document what I saw and experienced. And what was outside of my control is this guy's gaslighting behaviors, his emotions, and what he would say. That's out of my control. I cannot control what anyone feels or says. So the old me would have stayed up all night, ruminating, thinking about what this man would say, how I would respond, and his possible responses to my responses, and then my new responses to his responses, and on and on and on. And new me is like, his shit is outside of my control. I'm gonna let it go, okay? And it's 100% easier said than done, but there are 2 ways you can practice this. Number 1, my favorite, is using visualization techniques. Imagine your worries being burned up to a crisp. Number 2 is redirection. When you're noticing you're going on a rumination spiral, focus on your breath, move on to the next task, get up, go for a walk, anything to get out of your head and redirect your energy. The second aspect of giving less shits is identifying energy vampires. Caring too much about low priority things at work is a huge energy vampire. Give less shits to things that don't matter so you can conserve your shits and give them to things that do matter. Okay, so examples of things that matter are important and urgent tasks. Think, is it high impact? And do you need to do it now? You can use a tool like the Eisenhower decision matrix to help identify if tasks are important or urgent. Examples of things that don't matter and are huge energy vampires are low, medium importance, and priority tasks that people are telling you need to get it done right now, but the impact isn't there and it really doesn't need to be done. And the second most important one is our tendency to be perfectionists. It is a very common energy vampire. It is inefficient, ineffective, and overly stressful to aim for perfection. So first of all, there's a lot of evidence that society socializes women to be perfect because of societal expectations and gender roles. You may call it patriarchy. So if you have perfectionist tendencies, know that it is not your fault. So a personal example, I used to spend way too long making PowerPoint slides to get it perfect, the fonts, the colors, whatever. And then I realized, does it get the message across? Yes, it does. So instead of spending, 1 hour making 3 perfect slides, in that 1 hour, I can make 12 slides that really get the message across and are good anyways. So the key mantra is focusing on progress, not perfection. Get it 80% good and move on to your next important and urgent task and crush those tasks. The third aspect of giving less shits is to take things less seriously. I know we all shit on men who put looking for a girl who doesn't take herself too seriously on their dating profile. We're not talking about that. Hear me out. What if you take things less seriously at work? If you don't reply to that email by 9 p.m., will the world end? It's not gonna end. If you don't get that promotion, will you die? You're not gonna die. So hot take, capitalism tries to convince us that work is so important, work is life, work is our identity, but that's just kind of propaganda to get workers to work more. And the truth is, we're human beings who live to enjoy life for connection, to explore, to play, okay? We are multifaceted and we can be a corporate baddie and also live our best life. So enjoy your life. Work is just one aspect of your life and you don't need to take it so seriously. But seriously, if you're a firefighter or a surgeon, keep taking your job seriously. This video is not for you, it's for corporate girlies, okay? So how do you put giving less shits into practice? Putting it into practice. Here are 5 things you can do as next steps to put this into practice. Number 1, determine what tasks are truly urgent and important for your role using the Eisenhower matrix if you want. Number 2, reflect on what you have a hard time letting go of at work. Number 3, reflect on what your unique energy vampires are at work. Number 4, practice visualization and redirection. And number 5, remember, self-compassion and patience go a long way. Changing your habits takes time and a lot of patience. Don't be so hard on yourself. And these items are just recommendations. It is not a to-do list. There is no deadline. Take whatever you want from these items. And keep watching till the end for a full guide on how to be a stress-free, successful corporate baddie. The topic is why your personal life is key and the 3 traps. Your personal life is key for a stress-free life at work because a fulfilling personal life acts as a buffer for work stress for 3 reasons. Number 1, it provides support and connection. If you have supportive friends, family, community, it decreases your overall stress and improves your resilience to stress. And connection and belonging provide a huge degree of fulfillment and purpose according to my favorite researcher, Dr. Brené Brown. Second, it adds purpose to your life. If you have interests and a life outside of work, it gives a sense of purpose and satisfaction outside of work. It also helps you see that work is only one part of your life, not everything. Like I said, you are a multifaceted corporate baddie. This really helps you keep your stress in perspective and helps you give less shits. You're really not defined by your role at work, but by your interests and your community. For example, I'm a dog mom. I like to volunteer to mentor women. I like to paint. I read. I watch anime. I make content. And yes, I am also a project manager in tech. Number 3 is self-care. When you take care of yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, you are better equipped to handle stress at work and you perform way better when you're not stressed. So now it's time for the 3 traps. We're about to get real personal here. So story time, when I was in my early 20s, I was in a relationship that wasn't really working out, but instead of addressing my own relationship, I buried myself in work. I didn't realize I was subconsciously doing this and I genuinely thought I really enjoyed my startup and working, but hindsight is 2020 and I was being avoidant, and that leads me to trap 1. Trap 1 is avoiding stress in your personal life by overworking as a coping strategy. So these traps are not things that everyone does, but could be a common pitfall that adds stress to your work. So if you're like me and you fell into this trap, be careful. Getting out of this trap requires careful reflection and awareness. If you can afford it, I highly recommend finding a therapist or a life coach because we all have blind spots. I literally wasn't aware I was doing this for a very long time. The second trap is avoiding boredom or an unfulfilling personal life by overworking as a coping strategy. Like I said, this trap doesn't apply to everyone, but it is a common trap. So there are a lot of people who don't have interests, hobbies, or fulfilling things to do after work. And unfortunately, there is literally a loneliness epidemic, which does not help. But if you keep overworking to fill your boredom or dissatisfaction with life, you're perpetuating this cycle of boredom. So I really recommend getting out there, volunteering, and joining interest groups. Your future self and your community will thank you. If you don't know what you like or what you're interested in, it's time for exploring and reflecting. A really good question to reflect on is, what did you enjoy doing as a child? For example, during COVID, I was so bored out of my mind, but as a child, I loved to draw and sew clothes for my Barbies. So during COVID, I picked those two up again. I started drawing like manga, started drawing my dog, and then I started sewing. I made way too many scrunchies. But honestly, you could be surprised by your creativity if you allow yourself to be bored and sit with your boredom instead of shoving it up with working or something else as a coping strategy. Again, doesn't apply to everyone, but it can be a common trap. And my third trap is capitalism and self-care. Thinking you're doing self-care by buying certain products and services, but not actually caring for yourself. So hot take, capitalism and consumerism has ruined self-care by shifting the emphasis away from the actual act of caring for yourself and focusing on things you can buy and subscribe to. So there's nothing wrong with genuinely enjoying a yoga subscription or getting your green smoothies, but it is wrong that capitalism convinces us that we can buy these things to clear all of our stress. The focus is doing things you genuinely enjoy that contribute to your well-being. And examples are sleeping, nutrition, exercise, spending time with loved ones, and engaging in creative activities. Most important is just do what you enjoy. So how do we put all of this into practice? I have 4 questions that can help you reflect on this. Number 1, who do you consider your support network? Number 2, what gives you a sense of satisfaction or purpose? Number 3, what kind of self-care do you enjoy? Number 4, what are your interests and what did you enjoy doing as a child? Next, we move on to how to set actual boundaries at work. So we all have heard that boundaries at work are important for work-life balance, but like, how do you actually do it? And a disclaimer before we go into this section, every person, team, company culture is completely different in terms of company culture and boundaries. Make adjustments based on your specific cultural context. So here are 3 steps to setting boundaries. Number 1 is be comfortable with saying no. My name is no, my sign is no, my number is no. Boundaries can seem rude if you're not used to having boundaries. It can be extremely awkward and uncomfortable. So story time, when I was in my second internship, my first day, I literally didn't know what time to leave. So I was still sitting there at 5:30. Then my coworker came over and asked me if I could stay and help her test some URLs by clicking through an Excel sheet. And that would have taken maybe like a couple of hours. My manager overheard this and came over and told me that I didn't have to help her if I didn't want to. Thank God for Doey for telling me that I could say no, because if he wasn't there, I would have done that for her and like ended up staying at the office until 8 or 9 p.m. or something. The next step of setting boundaries at work is communicating your working hours. So I live in the Eastern Standard Time Zone from Toronto, and I work with clients and team members from all around the world, all around North America, and they don't always know what time zone I'm in and vice versa. So sometimes I get really random meetings way outside of my work hours. Y'all, once I got an email at 7 p.m. requesting for a meeting the next day at 8 a.m. And of course, I didn't see that because that was completely outside of my work hours. I usually work 9 to 5. So the client was mad at me that I didn't show up to the meeting and asked me why. And I told him I would be happy to join the meeting during my work hours, and my work hours are 9 to 5 Eastern Standard Time. I didn't die. Project was fine. Everything was fine. I set my boundary. Pro tip, you can always add your city or your time zone to your email signature or Slack if you're not sure. The third step is setting limits and sticking to it. Close your laptop at the end of the day and don't check your emails on your phone. One of my managers also gave me a really good piece of advice. If you don't want to always reply to an email at a certain time, never reply to it. So if you get an email at 7 p.m., if you reply to it once, you are setting the expectation that you will always be available and will always reply at 7 p.m. So obviously use your best judgment and assess priority. Don't get me wrong, I've worked some evenings, I've worked some weekends when there's been something very urgent and very important like a project deadline coming up. But don't be tempted to respond to those low or medium urgency or priority / importance items. You will not die, the company will not fail, life will go on, don't do it. And if your company culture does not respect the 9 to 5, use something else as an excuse to leave. For example, my friend Brenda books a workout class almost every day after work, so she literally has to leave and her coworkers can't stop her because she already signed up and she can't cancel. If you cancel, there's a fee. And then personally, I have a dog. My dog needs to poop every day in the evening. I have to go away from my desk to pick up poop, okay? So I literally cannot be available. And setting boundaries into practice, there are 3 things you can do. You can reflect on what you wish you said no to previously so you can identify this in the future and say no. You can also communicate your working hours and, like I said, add your city or time zone to your signature or Slack if you want to. Number 3 is setting limits after work and assessing them by priority. Use your best judgment if you need to respond or not. Only respond to things that are really urgent and high importance. Now we get to real talk about toxic work environments. Honestly, you cannot zen your way to a peaceful life if you're in an emotionally volatile or hostile work environment. There are 5 ways to identify if you're in a toxic work environment. So there could be a lack of support. Managers are not trying to support high workloads, and there also could be poor work-life balance. People are just commonly working evenings and weekends. Another common sign of a toxic workplace is high stress levels. There could be unrealistic expectations and deadlines placed on employees, leading to really high turnover as well. There could also be a lack of communication. There's a lack of honesty, trust, and open communication. People aren't comfortable communicating to their managers, and managers don't listen to their employees anyways. And lastly, a huge red flag of a toxic workplace is discrimination and harassment. Those are self-explanatory. That shit is toxic. If you're experiencing discrimination and harassment, get out of there. So what can you do if you're in a toxic work environment? If it is really affecting your well-being and sanity, get out of there. Start dusting off your resume, apply for jobs, and move on, because there's nothing you can do to fix a hostile and volatile work environment. We have covered a lot of ground today, and we all love a good TLDR. So we've discussed why giving less shits is important and the 3 elements: letting go, energy vampires, and perfectionism, and taking things less seriously. We also covered why your personal life is key and the 3 traps. We talked about the 3 benefits of having a good personal life. Trap 1, avoiding stress. Trap 2, avoiding boredom. And trap 3, self-care based on capitalism and consumerism. We also talked about how to actually set boundaries at work, saying no, communicating your work hours, and setting limits and using your best judgment. And finally, we covered toxic work environments, 5 signs to identify them, and what to do if you find yourself in this situation. Just as I promised you, here is a full map to being a stress-free corporate baddie so you can live your best life. This is meant to help you not add more stress. You do not need to do everything on this list, and there is no deadline. Take away what you want from this list and do whatever feels right for you. So in general, remember, self-compassion and patience go a long way. Changing your habits and increasing your awareness takes a lot of time and practice. And also, disclaimer, every person, team, company, country is different. Adjust for your specific cultural context. So now that you have the complete strategy and action plan for being a stress-free corporate baddie, go out there and live your best life, girl. If you want to learn how to communicate with confidence at work, watch this video next, and don't forget to click subscribe. Bye! Thanks for watching.